The auxiliary engine compartment of the Wandering Star hummed with a sickly wheeze that made Engineer Kale Wren wince. She lay on her back beneath the plasma converter, her coveralls stained with coolant and her short-cropped hair matted against her forehead. The wrench in her hand twisted against a stubborn coupling that had no business being this difficult to loosen. "Come on, you bastard," she muttered, applying more pressure. The bolt finally gave way with a satisfying click. That's when she heard it, the soft padding of 4 paws on metal decking. Kale didn't need to look. She knew exactly what was coming. "Tarka, I swear to every star in the galaxy, if you touch my tools—" A chittering sound almost like laughter echoed through the compartment. Kale tilted her head just in time to see a flash of midnight blue fur and 6 gleaming eyes as Cub Tarka snatched her sonic calibrator from the toolkit beside her leg. Tarka, the Vryn cub, barely 3 cycles old but already the size of an Earth mountain lion, scampered away with his prize, tail swishing with delight. His species was among the most feared predators in the Outer Rim, apex hunters whose adults could tear through starship hulls with their crystalline claws. But right now, Tarka was just a mischievous kit, with an obsession for anything that sparkled. Kale groaned and rolled out from under the engine. "You know that's expensive, right? Your mom's going to kill me if you break another one." Tarka crouched in the corner, the calibrator clutched between his front paws, his multiple eyes blinking in innocent curiosity. He made a trilling sound and batted at the device, watching it light up with each touch. The human engineer pushed herself to her feet, wiping grease from her hands. She'd been working on this engine for 6 hours straight, trying to coax another few light years out of a system that should have been replaced 3 stations ago. The Wandering Star was a refugee transport, carrying 17 different species fleeing the Skorath invasion. There was no time for proper repairs, no credits for new parts. There was only Kale, her ingenuity, and whatever miracles she could improvise from scrap. And apparently, one very determined tool thief. "All right, Fuddy," Kale said, approaching slowly with her hands raised. "Let's make a deal. You give me back my calibrator and I'll—" Tarka's ears flattened. His hindquarters tensed. "Don't you dare!" The cub bolted, calibrator still in his grip, darting between her legs and into the access corridor beyond. Kale cursed in 3 languages, English, Mandarin, and the clicking dialect she'd picked up from the Chitauri's traders, and gave chase. The corridor was narrow, designed for maintenance drones rather than full-grown humans or enthusiastic Vryn cubs. Kale had to duck and weave around conduits and power relays while Tarka bounded ahead with infuriating ease. "This is why humans don't belong in space," she muttered to herself, a phrase she'd heard 1,000 times from the other species aboard. Too slow, they said. Too fragile. Too emotionally attached to pets that could eat them. But humans had one advantage that the galaxy consistently underestimated: stubbornness. Tarka skidded around a corner, his claws sparking against the deck plating. Kale followed, her boots pounding against metal. She could hear the engine's wheeze growing, louder through the walls, a reminder that every second spent chasing this cub was a second the ship crept closer to catastrophic failure. The chase led them to the observation deck, where several passengers looked up in alarm as the cub burst through the doorway. Tarka leaped onto a viewport ledge, calibrator still clutched victoriously in his jaws. Kale stopped in the doorway, breathing hard. A Halixian diplomat with 3 heads regarded her with expressions ranging from amusement to disapproval. 2 Garvan engineers paused their game of lightus. Even Commander Voss, the ship's Vryn captain and Tarka's adoptive mother, looked up from her tactical display. "Engineer Wren," Voss said, her voice a deep rumble. "Are you harassing my son?" "Your son," Kale gasped, pointing at the cub, "has stolen 5 tools in the last 2 days. I need that calibrator to fix the engine or we're all going to be breathing vacuum in about 4 hours." Voss's eyes, all 6 of them, narrowed. "Tarka, come." The cub's ears drooped. He looked at his mother, then at Kale, then at the shiny device in his paws. For a moment, the engineer thought he might actually surrender it. Instead, Tarka dropped the calibrator. It clattered to the deck and rolled toward the edge of the viewport ledge, and the 50-foot drop to the lower observation level beyond. No. Kale lunged forward. What happened next would become shipboard legend. The human engineer, moving with the desperate speed that only adrenaline and panic could provide, dove across the deck. Her hand shot out, fingers closing around the calibrator just as it tipped over the edge. But her momentum carried her forward, and suddenly she was sliding toward the drop herself. Tarka moved like lightning. The cub pounced, his powerful jaws clamping, surprisingly gently around the back of Kale's coveralls. His claws dug into the deck plating, anchoring them both. For several heartbeats they hung there, human and predator cub, suspended between disaster and safety. Then slowly Tarka backed up, dragging Kale away from the edge. When the engineer finally collapsed on solid deck, she was shaking. Tarka circled her once, then curled up against her side, purring like a shuttle engine. "Humans," Voss said, and there was something like respect in her voice now. "You risk your lives for anything, don't you?" "Even a tool." Kyle sat up, clutching the calibrator to her chest. "Not just a tool. This calibrator is the only thing that can tune the plasma flow precisely enough to keep us in flight. Without it, 17 species don't have a home anymore." She scratched behind Tarka's ears, and the cub leaned into her touch. "Besides, someone's got to teach your kid that not everything shiny is a toy." Commander Voss's expression softened, as much as a Vryn face could soften. The galaxy thought humans too weak for space travel. Too sentimental. Too willing to die for small things, yeah? Kale pushed herself to her feet, calibrator in hand. "Well, this sentimental human needs to get back to that engine. Tarka, you coming? You can watch, but pause off the equipment." The cub chirped and followed her out of the observation deck. Behind them, the Helixian diplomat spoke in his triple voice harmony. "Fascinating. The human treats a predator cub like a companion. She risks death for a tool, and yet she is the one keeping us alive." Commander Voss watched them go, her tail swishing thoughtfully. "That," she said, "is why humans belong among the stars. They don't survive because they're the strongest or fastest. They survive because they never know when to give up." 3 hours later, the Wandering Star's engine purred with smooth efficiency. In the auxiliary compartment, Engineer Kale Ryn packed her tools carefully while Cub Tarka sat nearby, watching with 6 attentive eyes. On her shoulder, she jury-rigged a small holographic projector that cast dancing lights across the bulkhead. A distraction she'd improvised from spare parts. "There," she said, closing her toolkit. "Entertainment that's actually meant to be stolen." Tarka pounced at the holograms, delighted. Kale smiled and headed for her bunk, exhausted but satisfied. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past in the colors of hope and refuge. And in the heart of the ship, a human engineer and a predator cub proved that the galaxy's most unlikely friendships were often its strongest. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. Finding family in the unlikeliest places, and never giving up, even when the tools kept disappearing.